What's going on, guys? Hope you guys are having a great day. Welcome back to another video. Today we're just going to take a little cruise in the GT and talk a little bit about what's been on my mind lately. And I think it's a pretty important topic, especially if you're an Ecoboost owner and you're debating on going to a Mustang GT. I have some thoughts on this whole thing. So let's get on the road here and let's talk about it. This is going to be a little bit more of a laid-back video here, no crazy editing here. I just really want to talk to you guys. So the big thing that's been on my mind lately here, was it worth upgrading from an Ecoboost to the GT? This is, I think, on a lot of Ecoboost owners' mind, is there's always something in the back of your head that, oh, I could have had the GT, or there's the GT available, you know, I have the slower of the two cars, right? And the Ecoboost does get a lot of crap in the Mustang community, not as much as you Mach-E owners out there. I don't want to even get into that, to be honest, but the Ecoboost gets a lot of hate. I think it's really undeserved, but the GT is definitely looked at as the real version of the Mustang, whatever that is. I've had this car for about 3 months now. Now, if you guys, have been watching my other videos, we have, installed an aftermarket exhaust from MBRP on this car. And hey, there we go. We did the RTR Tech 7 wheels, which I really love, and then we've lowered it on the Steeda Progressive lowering springs. So the car's had a few mods. We're sitting at about 2,300 miles. Not very many miles on the car, but I've had it for about 3 months, so I think I can give you a little bit more of an owner's perspective here going from the two cars. So first huge perk that the GT has is obviously going to be the sound. The sound of the Coyote engine is absolutely amazing. And when we, upgraded the exhaust on this to the MBRP, it just sounds incredible. There's days when I'm leaving work and I literally have not turned on my radio. I would just listen to the exhaust because it does sound phenomenal. So one huge thing is the exhaust note. The Ecoboost, it doesn't really compare, especially because people expect to hear a V8 sound coming from a Mustang. They don't expect to hear a turbo 4-cylinder noises coming from it. So that's where a lot of, I think, the hate comes from. The other thing that the GT has going for it, especially if we are comparing stock for stock, but in this video, to be honest, I'm comparing my tuned Ecoboost more so to this stock, powertrain GT. So tuned powertrained Ecoboost versus, a stock powertrain GT. The big thing the GT has is the top end power. So the Ecoboost was absolutely fantastic up to about 100 miles an hour. And past that, it kind of fell on its face a bit. Now, you could argue, well, it just needs like an NX2 or something, an aftermarket turbocharger to help carry it into the, the higher speeds there, and it won't drop off, But the GT pulls like an absolute freight train above 5,000 RPMs and above 100 miles an hour. It just keeps pulling. So super cool, having that on the V8. Something you'll miss in the Ecoboost. The other thing that kind of goes to the exhaust and the VA, all that stuff, is really just people's perception of the two cars. So the GT gets way more likes, thumbs ups, all that stuff than the Ecoboost does, which makes sense. I mean, the sound is great. This car especially is in a really bright color. It's in grabber blue. So, it gets more attention than the Ecoboost had for sure. But that's just a little thing that I've noticed, is that public perception of this car versus the Ecoboost is much different. But now on to the the part that's been really on my mind lately, guys. So some things I miss about my little Ecoboost. I'll admit it. I do miss the lightness. I miss how light the front end of the car felt compared to the GT. After driving this and after the initial kind of thrills wore off a little bit, and dailying this car to work and stuff like that, you know, I definitely feel the extra weight over the front end, you know, of this car versus the Ecoboost. It's not as direct, it doesn't feel as playful in the corners as what the Ecoboost did. And I honestly missed that. That was a ton of fun in the Ecoboost platform. The other thing with the GT is there's like not much low-end torque on these cars. You know, you really got to wring it out to get the power out of them, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, it's very smooth down low, you know, the transmission, the 10-speed in this car I think is smoother than it was in my Ecoboost. But stoplight to stoplight, the Ecoboost tuned 93 PD tuning, way more fun I think than the GT just around town. Like stoplight to stoplight, you get on it a little bit, you get thrown back in the seat. The GT, you really got to be like all in, like foot to the floor, you know, in the right gear. But when you do that, I mean, it pulls like a freight train. So it really depends what you want. I felt like I had more fun in the Ecoboost without pushing it to the limits, you know, than I do in this one. But when you start pushing both cars to the limit, that's when the GT, you know, that's when it really shows its colors there, and it's a blast. You know, another, I guess, thing that's, you know, something to consider, it's really not really that big of a thing, because if you're looking at a Mustang, you're probably not concerned as much with the gas mileage. But everything is more expensive these days, so it's something to mention. You know, I get considerably worse gas mileage in the GT, as you would have guessed. I get about 18 combined, and I drive to the office typically 2 days a week, and we, you know, take it out on weekends and stuff like that. So still filling up only once a week. The Ecoboost, though, I was able to get at least 23, 24, just having fun with the car, not really worrying about it. And when I took road trips in it, I would get like 30 mpg, 28, 29 if I was still having some fun. So there's a big difference there. You are, even if you're real nice on this car, the temptation to put the pedal down is pretty high. So, and that's part of owning a Mustang, right, is having fun with it. But if you want to feel the power that the V8 has, you got to put the pedal down to feel it. The Ecoboost, you know, you had that low-end torque from a very low RPM. This one is like 5,000 and above. You start feeling, you feel all the power above 5,000 RPM. So, Ecoboost owners, is it worth upgrading from your Ecoboost to the GT? I guess that's a tough one to really answer. I'll say it like this. I don't personally push my cars really ever over 100 miles an hour, right? Like, I'm not taking my cars typically to drag strips and tracks and really pushing the car, you know, past 100 miles an hour. I personally really like the performance from like a 0 to 60, something that I can really feel on the roads and with traffic, because personally, I live in Georgia. We're about 35 minutes away from downtown Atlanta. So the traffic around here absolutely sucks, I'll be honest. So the Ecoboost felt way more playful, more fun around town on little twisty roads. It just felt more, I don't know, it just felt lighter, to be honest. But the GT up top, power, just full on brute power, the GT has it. There's no, you know, over 100 miles an hour, it's no real competition. The Ecoboost would fall off and the GT would keep pulling. Now you could argue the GT is stock. I'm not sure, guys, on how, you know, once these ECUs are cracked, how, you know, an E85 tune would feel on the GT. So that's really what I want you guys to comment down below. I want you to let me know, all you GT owners, you know, is an E85 tune, you know, does it wake the car up for the low RPMs? You know, or is it kind of the same story where you just don't have a ton of torque down low and you know, you have all the power up top, which is still great. That's what I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear, one, if you have an Ecoboost and you've upgraded to a GT, almost hit a bird there. If you've upgraded to a GT, what are your thoughts? Do you have any, you know, feelings of missing the Ecoboost? You know, I do in some regard. I don't know if it's as much of missing the Ecoboost as it is missing turbo 4-cylinder cars, because I had a GTI before this. I had the Ecoboost then, and now the GT. and the GTI and Ecoboost both were tuned. The GTI I had like a KO4 turbo on. That thing was super fun, man. And it actually leads me into this little second blurb I'll give you is last year sometime I actually was, before I decided to go with the route of buying the S650 and going this way, I actually test drove, I actually went to a couple VW dealerships trying to get my hands on test driving a Golf R, because those cars I've heard are just super impressive. 3.9 0 to 60s in the DSG cars for those Golf Rs, the Mark 8s anyway. And so recently I did test drive one of those. I found one near me just about a week ago, and I was able to test drive it. And man, the initial launch from that car made me want one. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, it made me want one. The sound of the exhaust would be nowhere near this. The top end, I'm sure, is nowhere near this. But the absolute, the 0 to 60, 0 to 100, that little Golf R pulled super hard. I think 3.9 0 to 60, it's hard to argue with that. But that's for another video, guys. We're not doing anything rash. I'm not, going out and being impulsive, super impulsive anyways. I'm always a little impulsive, but we're not going absolutely crazy here. I'm not selling this thing yet or anything like that. But I do want to make that kind of known that, part of me does miss that turbo 4-cylinder kind of feel. But guys, I want to hear from you. So if you're in the same boat, if you have upgraded from a Ecoboost to a GT, let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on this? If you've tuned an S550, what mods do you think we can add to this thing right here, right now, to make this thing a little bit more direct? I'm thinking, since we already did springs, I'm thinking front strut tower brace would help, sway bars, but I really want to get the front end more direct because right now it does feel a little heavy. So I'll leave it at that. And of course, if you have either one of these cars, enjoy them, man. They're super fun, they look good, can't argue with that. So you guys have a great day, and if you guys want to see more videos, feel free to hit that subscribe button. It's absolutely free. You guys have a great day, and we will catch you in the next video. Bye. Let's put it in track. Why not? We're on a track. We're in a back road right now. It's not a track. It's 35. I'm already doing 41, but what the hell? Let's go. Oh, yeah. See, she sounds great. She sounds great. Let's see. There's usually traffic up here. And there is. It's a yellow light. Oh, I love you, Atlanta. See, you really got to be all in. That was like half throttle, and it picks up and goes, but I don't know. Just a little something that leaves me wanting a little more, a little bit more of the spicy meatball. I'm insane. I think I'm just crazy. All right, guys. Goodbye.